Welcome to our presentation on fundamentals of game design and gameplay. We are talking about how to incorporate stories in our games, in your games. This is the lesson 2 of the storytelling lecture series. Now, we are talking why stories are important in games. So there is not one way to incorporate stories in games. That it will depend on the type of the game as well, and also what kind of entertainment experience you want to provide to the players, what kind of players you want to serve. Space Invader is just a one line of a story. The aliens have attacked the world. You are in charge to save the world. It doesn't need any more, because if you want to include more stories, it may interfere with the gameplay. But games like Dreamfall and Discworld Noir, they include stories like novels, and the stories provide half of the entertainment. The links and will show those games to some extent, but you should always keep in mind that gameplay comes first, then story. The story should not interfere the gameplay, or should not decrease the gameplay part, or should not make the gameplay boring. In many of the games, the story overwhelmed the gameplay. Usually when the game industry started to build games based on the different books or movie franchise, those games included more story that overwhelmed the gameplay. So in any case, I think the best approach can be build the player-centric game. Whether you want to include a story or how you want to include a story, you should keep in mind that will it improve the player's experience or player's entertainment. If so, include a story. If it doesn't add some value to player's entertainment, then please don't include a game. Then include a story. How much story your game should include? It will depend on different factors, like the factors that affect this. I think the length of the game. I think, as you told, that usually long games benefit from a story, because the story makes the player involved with the game. Just give some context. Yeah, and also the characters of the games, that also play an important role. If the game involves some character, and also if the player can identify himself or relate himself to some of the characters, and maybe emotionally get involved with some of the characters, then maybe you can add a story to that game. But let's see, if you're making a game that involves many anonymous people in the game, in a theme park for example, and the player cannot associate him with any of the characters, then maybe it may not be the right game to include a story. And degree of realism, I think usually if it's a realistic game, it usually involves a story. I would say that if it's some sort of social games or character oriented games, people oriented games, in that case, yeah, it is true. But many times abstract game usually don't involve any story. But some arcade games, abstract games like MS Pac-Man, as they involve some character, it includes a cute story, and that makes the game more enjoyable. But sometimes realistic games like real-time car simulation or flight simulation, still they're realistic, but the game premise do not need a story. Yeah, and also it will depend on the emotional richness of the game. If you want to inspire greater variety of emotions in the game and to the player, then include a story, otherwise no. And usually single player gameplay seldom inspire any rich emotion other than pleasure in success, frustration at failure. Deeper emotion comes when players can identify themselves with different characters of the game and problems of those characters and try to solve those problems or involves him with those characters, and this usually happens in well written story. So if you want to provide inspire greater variety of emotions, I think including a rich story will help. In our next lecture we will discuss different concepts of storytelling and incorporating stories into games. Thanks and have fun.